Welcome to Recap Our Studio.
Our featured film for today is a criminal action flick called The Awakener. Relax and have fun, there are spoilers coming. The movie opens with a scene of protesters and demonstrators gathering outside of a government facility. There, they staged a demonstration against their dishonest and thieving governor, Sandro Correa. As the mob hurls objects and stones at the structure, the governor takes refuge behind a table, where he is discovered by a mysterious figure in a mask. After this, there will be a new scenario. Forced AE troops may be seen arming themselves and getting ready to fight. A little while later, they arrive to the building where the guy was relaxing with his morning brew. Sandro the governor was the individual in question. He was detained and sent to the corporate headquarters for questioning. Their other cops applaud you and Miguel for your efforts in apprehending the crooked governor. At the scene of the questioning, evidence of his wrongdoing and looting of public funds, they informed him, had been uncovered. The governor warns that he will continue to eliminate everyone who attempts to reveal his criminal behavior. He even offers the cop money in exchange for dropping the allegations against him. In the wake of the governor's extravagant lunch, his attorney had just arrived. The people he knows at the prosecutor's office were discussed. Soon he will be out from jail, he said confidently. He warned him that house detention was a real possibility if the probe dragged on. Meanwhile, they're at the DEA's main computer facility. At a private meeting, their leader breaks the news that the proof relating to Governor Correa's theft of healthcare funds is insufficient. That's why he let him go home under house arrest. Once Miguel and his companion leave the office, they exit. Miguel visits his kiddo. Miguel shows up there with a t-shirt he bought as a gift for his daughter. As a result, she becomes ecstatic. While her mother shoots photographs, he assists her in putting on her shirt. Miguel then takes her away in a cab. The traffic jam prompts them to exit the vehicle. As they made their way down the pavement toward the arena, someone fired an unguided arrow towards his daughter. The bleeding began immediately. Miguel took his sick child to the emergency room at the hospital right away. Miguel's daughter Alice was taken to the ER as soon as they arrived, and Miguel was advised to wait outside. When Miguel finally gets in, he enters after waiting eagerly outside. In the hospital district, he often encounters really ill people who are left lying unprotected and untreated. He was taken aback by the sight of all many sick people and the dilapidated state of the hospital. His daughter Alice was laying lifeless in front of the surgery room when he arrived. The physician was unable to explain why they had not yet brought her in for surgery. Not enough surgical rooms meant long waits for patients, he informs him. Eventually, after a lot of blood loss and waiting about, the therapy worked. When Alice's heartbeat finally stopped, it was a protracted and agonizing death. A while later, Miguel's ex-mother wife showed up at the hospital, where she received the devastating news that her little daughter had passed away. After this, there will be a new scenario. For lack of adequate proof, the governor was granted bail and freed from jail. The next scene finds him at Mike's house, where he officially declares his intention to run for president. He has promised more funding for public hospitals and other healthcare facilities. He says he'll work to make life better for the general public. On the other side, while out running, Miguel thinks of his kid. There wasn't enough medical equipment at the hospital, in his opinion, and that's what killed his daughter. As far as Miguel is concerned, his daughter's life could have been saved if only hospitals had better resources. In his opinion, patients should not be forgotten about. While out for a jog, he stopped in at a local store and learned that Governor Correa had just been released from jail. And as Miguel's anger and frustration with the system grew, so did his rage. After venting his rage at the police officer, he made his way through the protesters outside the government building and attacked him. Officers released tear gas in his direction. There, he hides behind a mask. He had special forces training, as we all know. In order to get access to the premises, he had to outwit a large number of police officers. After a climb, he enters the structure. He dispatches one of the governor's guards and gains entry to the safe house. Continuous blows to the head eventually prove fatal. Miguel goes back to work the next day, when he is tasked with investigating protesters who were present at the event together with the other day members. He informs them that the investigation team was able to apprehend numerous people they believed to be behind the protest's organization. There was a female suspect, and it seems that Miguel knew one of the suspects. After some questioning from Miguel, the lady introduces herself as Nina and reveals her profession as a computer programmer. Anita informs him that she has a tape of Miguel attacking the cops on her phone and that Miguel is the one she knows is responsible. He takes her cell phone into the evidence room to examine it. As it turned out, he had to agree with her. Miguel is left with no other option, and so he sets her free during the night. After reviewing the footage and the occurrences at his home, Miguel tracked down Nina at her apartment after seeing her on the street. Miguel is investigating the theft of medical supplies and money, and Nina offers to assist by showing him the governor of Korea's laptop. Miguel now believes North Korea could not have accomplished this on its own. While investigating the embezzlement case, Miguel learned crucial details after Anita hacked into Korea's personal laptop. She takes him through the biographies of corrupt politicians she has uncovered. Next, Miguel made plans to go after the corrupt officials and politicians who shared responsibility for the health department's misappropriation and wrongdoing. Miguel murders everyone while still hiding behind his disguise. The news of the politicians' deaths, one after another, quickly went global. Following this, Miguel visited Nina at her place of employment and tasked her with identifying the sponsors who had been sponsoring the campaigns of these corrupt politicians. Despite Nina's refusal, Miguel proposes a sentence reduction for her incarcerated mother. When Nina returns home and asks her mom about the worth of truth, she is told by her mom that it is an illusion since everyone's idea of the truth is different. The following scene shows Nina uncovering Gomez's profile among the list of corrupt politicians' financial backers. While Minister Regina is meeting with Gomez, Nina takes charge of the building's security cameras from her office at the headquarters. On the day of the governor's death, Edu was poring through suspect files. He was successful in discovering the disguised man's next victim. The one that shook things up was Minister Marta Regina, often known as the Awakener. Attempting to notify Miguel, Edu is unable to get through, so he departs on his own to go to the minister's office. Once he spots the disguised guy, he gives pursuit to Miguel and begins firing at him. A wounded Miguel seeks Nina out immediately, and she tends to his wound. Miguel and Eddie reported Minister Regina's cooperation with Ontario the next day. Their fraudulent campaigns were bankrolled by one Gomez. Even when Miguel and Edgier decided to look into Minister Regina, their boss disregarded their findings. He also urged them to drop their probe of Minister Regina. As a result of his anger, Miguel ultimately resolves to personally carry out Gomez's execution. Once he had traveled for a while, he finally arrived at the Gomez house. He was seen at a dinner party with several high-ranking government officials. Gomez came as his son was seeing his mother and inquiring whether it was true that he was not yet ready to become a president. Miguel, however, shoots Gomez's son on purpose so that he would realize his mistake and accept responsibility. However, Gomez capitalized on the public sorrow at the loss of his son by declaring his candidacy for president. While everything is going on, a guy in a vehicle pulls up, and it turns out that he is a private spy working for Ontario Gomez, who is looking into the killings of his co-workers. Siqueira was his name. He has been engaged by Gomez himself to look into the killings. After learning that the murderer had a sidekick, he tracked down and assassinated Nina's employer, who he had deduced must be the Awakener. At work, Nina learns that her boss has passed away. As quickly as she could, she fled Miguel's house. If she makes it there in time. Kara and his men, who had been following Nina, had also arrived to the hideaway and launched an aggressive assault. Miguel begs Nina to escape as he covers for her during the shooting. Miguel dons his mask and begins slaughtering his devotees in the next scenario. After Kara successfully abducted Nina while he was battling with one of Siqueiro's men, he made a deal with Miguel to exchange her life for her own. You may recall that Kara gave Miguel the order to eliminate rival presidential candidate Julia Machado. In this case, Miguel is in agreement. The cops eventually showed up at Miguel's house. With the help of his squad, Edie, you discover the location where the Awakener had been hidden. Even more shocking was the revelation that his closest friend and co-worker Miguel was the Awakener. As a result of this information, they investigated the area and learned that Gomez is the Awakener's intended victim. There was a presidential candidate discussion, and Edu and his crew had to get there quickly. In that case, Miguel must also murder Julia. Getting there in time for the argument. Miguel had decided to end Julia's life. You showed there, Edie, and put a quick halt to it. They end up fighting it out like cats and dogs. He orders Miguel to halt everything, but Miguel ignores him and keeps going. His conversations were of little interest to him. Yet Nina, who was being kept hostage by Siqueira, battled back until she had piqued Kara's curiosity. Later, Miguel is nabbed for the murder of crooked government officials. Then, in an effort to convince Miguel, he brought in the man's ex-wife, who said that their daughter would be ashamed to hear of Miguel's present vigilantism and would not be proud of her father. Some months later, while still incarcerated, Miguel finds out that Ontario Gomez has been elected. The guy who has come to investigate Miguel is none other than the deputy dish who tried to assassinate Miguel on behalf of Miguel's bosses. Nonetheless, Miguel evaded capture and ultimately killed the guy who had been pursuing him. Miguel breaks out of jail, arms himself, and makes his way to the Parliament building, where Gomez and his colleagues are celebrating Gomez's triumph against Julia and the election results. Without wasting any time, Miguel launched an assault on the Parliament building, killing every single one of Gomez's men and co-workers. Finally confronting Gomez in his office, he tells me, Gail, that corruption will never be eradicated as long as greed is a fundamental human characteristic. After murdering Gomez, Miguel ended his life with a bullet to the head. At gunpoint, Miguel was encircled by Gomez's men. Miguel, though, has other ideas. Miguel had a bomb in his vehicle, which he had previously built. Once Miguel touched the bomb's detonate, the structure was completely destroyed. When the rescuers, police and forensics team arrived at the area the next day, they discovered the Awakener's mask but no sign of Miguel's corpse. At the very last moment, the Awakener is seen standing on the roof of a building, gun drawn, ready to fire at his intended victim. Much appreciation to everybody who has watched. Join the channel's subscriber base to see more videos like this one and to support its further development.